Good morning, class. We are back again for another deck profile. This is the next one in my big mass bulk of recordings. I've got no idea which order which one's coming out in, as I'm trying to keep this somewhat straight. But we are carrying on with the Army Lyricals, and this time we are on Krysrain. So Krysrain, this is the set 4 deck list. I will obviously share my thoughts more on set 5 once my JP cards actually arrive. I can properly test set 5 Krysrain. But for now, this is going to be set 4 because I've actively tested it a lot in JP, and I've been testing it since Rochelle has come out in English. So let's get started. And we're about to get started then the ride line. So obviously, starter can be whatever you wish. I've just gone for Mion. More for the fact of it matches up with my grade 1 of choice, which is the Aces' Nanami. So Nanami's got the skill of when this card is rode, you choose a grade 1 or less from your drop zone, call it to rearguard circle as rest. So this is really good for us because obviously it gives us additional discard targets for that first turn, because we can then discard our grade 1s to then call to board, to then bounce back to board and do all the fancy stuff with. So it's really nice. Turns a negative into a positive, which is really good for us. Second skill, don't need to worry about because we're never able to call it anyway. Now, the grade 2 I've gone for, here's a bit of an interesting one. So I've gone back into the Krysrain ride line with the Confident Aqua Musette. So Musette's got the skill, when she's rode upon by a grade 3 card with Krysrain in its card name, you reveal top card of your deck, and call it to rearguard circle if it's a grade 3 or less normal unit, and put it in your hand if it's not. So I've gone for this one because the fact that it's a guaranteed +1, either you're getting shield to your hand or a unit on your board. Now, I do know that obviously there are different options I could be going with for my ride line, like the Sedna into Aqua, or I could be going straight from Nanami into Kiura. And personally, I'm not fond of those options. So the start off with the carrying on the Kari line with the going into Kiura, with the ideal game plan being having both Franset and Yuika on board for the turn 2 push. Kiura just is then a dead card at that point, because Franset does what Kiura's doing. So it just doesn't feel needed. As for the Sedna into Aqua, really, really good. I love that part. But Aqua into Krysrain, getting a top 5 for a grade 2, when most of your grade 2s you want to have been seen by that point, is just not amazing for me. Plus, not running a high amount of grade 2s in the and higher in the deck does cause the top 5 check to be a very high chance that you can actually fail the check. Because when you've got your Battleship Lands that are bottom decking, you've got your Precious that you're hard mulliganing for, so you've got other discard targets to get actual pluses out of, and the generic draw power of the deck doesn't really help. Plus, this personally at the moment in this version is better than Sedna, due to the fact of Nanami actually works with our grade 1s, which is a very key part of the deck, because our main focus of the deck at the moment is Rochelle. Obviously, this list may change up when it gets round to set 5, because the new support for the set 5 is really good. But for now, this is what we're going with. As for the grade 3, I have gone for the fated one of Everchanging Krysrain, which makes sense, it's a Krysrain deck. So first skill is the Act skill. Act Vanguard Circle, once a turn. Cat Blast 1, choose as many of your units as you wish, and then perform the following. If you perform one of the following, sorry. If you chose 4 or more, you perform 2. And if you chose 5 or more, you perform all of them. But they all have to have different names. Sorry, I am ad-libbing because they've errated it but not actually released the physical card errata for Krysrain yet. So I'm having to do it off memory. The first skill is draw a card and energy charge 3. The second part is choose one of your units and it gets 15,000 power until end of turn. And the third part is this unit gets +1 critical till end of turn. And the second skill is her Divine skill. And this is Divine skill, Auto, Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked a grade 3 or greater unit. You can cost, return all your rearguards to hand. Choose up to one unit card from your hand, call it your rearguard circle, and until the end of turn, increase or decrease that unit's power and critical to match this unit. So first skill is our bread and butter. Counterblast 1 to draw 1, energy charge 3, give power and crit is really solid. Especially when we've got cards that do combo off with that plus 15k power designation, such as Franset, who we will get to later. Gives some really interesting combo. And then the Divine skill being a scoop everything up and call something down to match her is that big I'm going to win this turn push, which really is nice for the deck. You do want to obviously time your Divine skill to the point of you know that the unit you're calling is going to kill. But that's where half the fun comes in. As that's it for the ride line now. So let's move on to our grade 3s. And the sections are very, very short. And by short I mean there's 4 cards. And 3 of those are the Persona rides. The last one is our Regulus piece, and we have gone for the Radiance Caliburn. So Radiance Caliburn has perform one of the 2 options. You either get to draw 2 cards, or you get to put this into Soul and countercharge 1. And Lyrical being Lyrical, we don't have a massive amount of countercharge, hence why this is our Regulus piece of choice. The draw 2 is nice, but with the inherent draw power we've got, it's not as needed. Unless you're digging for a key piece that you haven't seemed to hit. But overall, this is a really solid Regulus piece. Other options you could go for if you don't want to go for Caliburn would be the likes of the Union in the Sky that comes out next month with the Stardust Blaze trial deck. Or you can go for, trying to think the name of it now, the Blitz Order from set 3, DZ, that's got 2 uses of being played from hand to drop, then drop you can bind it for an extra bit of shield. Twincast, Protection Twincast, that's the one I'm thinking of. So that's alternative options you could go for. Just in case you don't A, have Caliburn, or B, want to run Caliburn because you're fine without the draw power. Because extra defense is always nice. Then we are moving on to grade 2s. And we got a nice little chunk. But enough to act, because obviously we're not running that many grade 3s, we do end up getting with a few more grade 2s. And the first grade 2 is the one we did mention about earlier. And that is the Loving Pink Franset. So Franset's got 2 skills here. Both this time we actually get to use both skills because we are a Krysrain deck. First skill is, just going to grab one just so I can read it. When this unit is, oh yeah, this is one I've got to ad lib. When this unit's power is increased by the effect of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name, choose one of your Vanguards that gets 10,000 power till end of turn. And then second skill, when this unit attacks, choose up to 4 of your units. If you chose 3 or more, and they all have different names, this unit gets power plus 5,000. And if you chose 4 or more units with different card names, end of the battle, choose one of your other rearguards and return it to your hand. Gotta love ad-libbing. Bushy, please give us the errata soon. Not the errata, the actual card exchange, because me being me, I like to have the actual effects. Especially when in fact I've got the FFR Krysrain, FFR Franset that I actually want to be correct with. So this is our main piece of the deck. It's really good for our early game because we can chuck this down early and then bounce our board back. But we can also, from turn 3 onwards, target this with Krysrain to gain the 15k. This then passes 10k back over to Krysrain. And this then on attack gains another 5k. This does combo well with Rochelle for extra combos, but we'll discuss that more when we get to Rochelle. The next card up on our list is the same one we had in most of our deck profiles at this point, and that is going to be Pressia. And she's the basic energy cycler from DZ set 1. Honestly, if you're ever looking at picking up lyrical decks, this is one of the cards I would very much recommend picking up. It is a very solid staple for most lyrical decks. Just for the fact of it's got the first skill of when this unit is put on Guardian Circle or discarded from hand during your ride phase for the ride deck, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. We do also have the second skill, which is a bonus of Act Rearguard Circle. Oh, sorry, no, it's Auto, sorry, it's not an Act. Also, when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3, choose one of your units and give it power plus 5000. If you chose a Rearguard, end of the turn, return that unit back to your hand. So, really good card. Both skills really nice to work with. The 5k you can actually give to Krysrain for the Divine skill turn if you really wanted to as well, which is really nice. Talking of discarding during our ride phase, however, our next card also works along those lines, and that is the What Colour Is Your Wish Valshabland. So Valshabland's got the skill of Auto, when this card is discarded during your ride phase, you can Soul Blast 1, put this to bottom deck, and then you draw a card. And the second skill is Auto, when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Counterblast 1, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets the skill Continuous Vanguard Circle. All of your front row units, I believe? All of your front row units get power plus 5000 until end of turn. So this is a really good card just for the extra bits of discarding. I will, however, say if you're waiting till set 5 to fully pick up Krysrain, I wouldn't rush out and pick up Valshablands. This is for the fact of the new support we've got coming in set 5 is a Soul Blast 2. So it does make soul costs become very tight in terms of what you can and can't do. So this is one I would not recommend rushing to go out and buy. As for our final grade 2, I'm running 2 copies of the Innocent Orange Uns. So Uns has got the skill of, when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name, you can Counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 3. To look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 unit card from among them with a different card name from your unit cards on your Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. Call it to Rearguard Circle and shuffle the deck. And second skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if you have 4 or more, choose 4 or up to 4 of your units. If they all have different names, this unit gets power plus 10,000. I hate this errata. So, all in all, this is a top deck checker to find missing pieces, which is really good for the deck. Counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 3 can be seen as very expensive, but the fact of we're gaining 3 energy per turn naturally, plus our 3 energy from Krysrain, is easy to manipulate. It does mean that obviously it then becomes a Counterblast 1 for a top 5 check, which is a really good skill. And then being able to be a 20k attacker when your opponent reaches grade 3 is really nice. It helps make magic numbers, because we can, with our Euekas, hit 33k columns, 43k if we're Persona riding. Just to force that extra little bit of pressure, so really good to have. So, as I said, with the new set, likely going to swap the 4 Valshablands into the new double rare that we've got coming for set 5. But outside of that, this grade 2 list is pretty much solid and it's not going to change. But now we've done our grade 2s, let's move to our grade 1s, because there's some interesting bits in here. As I grab most of the pile, because it's all literally just grade 1s and triggers now. I should just flip it over, because it's off screen, you can't see it anyway. So our first thing is obviously our Perfect Guards. I've gone for 4 normal Perfect Guards, just for the fact of, Arns can call these off the top deck. So being able to call these off of Arns, to then be able to bounce it back to hand with multiple different skills, makes really good searchable PGs. You could, if you really want to, swap one for the Elementaria Sanctitude. But that's down to personal preference there. I've chosen not gone for it because I like the ability to be able to call and then bounce. Then our next grade one is our brand new update to the deck, which we did briefly mention. And that's the Moderate Mint Rochelle. So Rochelle's got the skill of Auto Rearguard Circle. When your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name attacks, in cost, Energy Blast 3 and put this unit into your soul. You then draw a card, choose a Rearguard that was chosen by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name, and stand it. So, because of this, she can stand anything that you choose for the checking of names now, which is really good. So, really nice combos. Your main restand target, as I said, is going to be our Loving Pink Francette. And that is due to the fact that Francette's on attack skill is not once per turn. So we do actually get 2 instances of plus 5k and bounce a unit. If you've got, obviously, enough units on board for the bouncer unit afterwards. Does normally mean you need to commit a full board of 6. But then with the fact of one's going to soul, you're bouncing 2, Eureka then bounces the last one. You've cleared 4 units back off your board, leaving 1 Eureka on board. Which really is not that bad. The draw power of this is also really nice as well, because it then means it's actually replacing itself. So you're not actually losing out of it. Plus the soul generation is good to help fund stuff like Eureka. Which, we've said her name enough times now. Let's take a little look at our beautiful Eureka. So, Eureka's got 2 skills. First one is Auto Rearguard Circle. Once a turn, when your other unit is placed in the same column as this card, this unit gets, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets power plus 5,000. And then second skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted a Rearguard. You can Soul Blast 1, choose the unit you boosted and bounce it back to your hand. So, really good for self-clearance and early game rush. That 5k in the late game does help out, obviously, for hitting the magic numbers. However, I do feel that with set 5, Eureka is going to be coming back out again. The reason for this is due to the fact of Soul Blast again being an issue. Other option you could do if you don't have Eurekas or want to try something different is the Pretty Demon Chord package, which is the one I've used for a very long time, and I love it to pieces. So you can obviously use the order to enable the ability to bounce something. So you can stick the order onto a Francette to bounce it, instead of having to have the Eureka behind it. It does obviously come with the elaborate costume Ethnida, which then searches it and becomes a 13k booster on its own. So you get a little bit of fun out of it. I normally would do a 2-2 split of the Order and Ethnida. As for other cards we are running, however, though, I'm running only 2 copies of the Cynical Composer Realm. So I'm going to cover the card first before I explain why I've only gone for 2. So starting off, we've got the Continuous Rearguard Circle skill. During the battle, this unit boosted. If you've got a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5,000. And the second skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Krysrain in its card name, choose up to 4 of your units if they've all got different names. You could Energy Blast 3. And until the end of this battle, when your opponent would call cards without Sentinel from their hand to the Guardian Circle, they must choose 3 or more different grades. So basically, it's a 3-card battle door, but the 3 cards have to all be different grades. Or the opponent can just Sentinel. So the reason why I've only gone for 2 is because you don't need this card in the early game. You want to ideally be placing this down when you're going for your push turn, because you don't have the energy outlets to keep spamming it. Because when you've got Arns using Energy Blast 3, you've got Rochelle using Energy Blast 3, you've got your Pressias using Energy Blasts most of the time. Adding in Realm on top when you're only generating 3 a turn is just too much. Ideally, saving this for the late game, plus your Vanguard's already going to be swinging for 23, 33, 28, 38, based on whether you've given the power to the Vanguard or to the Francette. But with a crit on top, just putting anything down behind the Vanguard, like you can even boost with this without using the skill. That's 13k booster. You're then hitting 36k minimum, going all the way up to the potential of 38, 48, 51k with a crit. That's going to force a perfect guard without having to worry about Energy Blasting 3. So this is a very much remembering what you've seen your opponent use, what they haven't used, and using your judgment calls on when to use the Energy Blast 3 skill. As for other options, these 2 are currently tech spots. You can put multiple other things in there. First one I've gone for is the Rainbow Jewel Beast Old Place. So this has got the skill of when it's placed on Rearguard Circle or put to Guardian Circle, you can cast, put a total of 2 cards that were from your ride deck back into your ride deck face up, and then perform the following skill based on where it is placed. If it was placed on the Rearguard Circle, choose a card with the same card name as your Vanguard from your drop or soul and put it into your hand. And the Guardian Circle skill is this unit gets shield plus 15,000 until end of the battle. So I've mainly got it in here for the shield value, because you're not needing to loot Persona rides as much. But you can, if you really need to, put it on Rearguard Circle, grab back your Krysrain, then bounce it back to hand, and then use the Guardian Circle skill afterwards to gain the 15k shield. Because it doesn't matter for this deck about how many Krysrains we have access to, unlike it did for the Vert deck, where you need all 4 Verts in circulation constantly. So, really good tech option. Another tech option I've gone for is 1 copy of the blue-haired prodigy Resius. So, Resius got the skill, when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, choose one of your other units and it gets 10k until end of turn. This is literally here just to whack 10k on the Vanguard. It's also really good for the early game if you really want to. You can pop this down, give 10k, and then use Francette in the early game to bounce it back to hand as an option. Create some nice little interesting plays. Because if you haven't got the extra attack to do 3 attacks, you still need the 4 units on board, this is a good one to put down as an option. And then bounce it back. Other things that you can put into this slot is the Munching Girl Seer, which is a Soul Blast one. Look at top card, either add it to hand and discard a card, or call it to Rearguard Circle. Which is another nice little extension you can do on your Krysrain for extra attacks. But it's again one-off slot that I won't be using come set 5 more than likely due to the lack of souls flexibility. Another thing you can put into these flex slots would be the Sea Song Elastino. Because if you're going for the order package of Pretty Demon Cord does have the end of turn skill to discard a card and add the Pretty Demon Cord back to hand. So you can combine this with the Elastino to Energy Blast 3 and remove it to bounce one of your, to add the card you discarded back to your hand. But because we're also playing orders regularly as well, we do get the main phase skill of, if we're the same grade Vanguard as our opponent, we get power plus 2k and they can either soul charge 1 or energy charge 1. Which, if you go in that route, the soul charge 1 could help fund things like Sia and the new double rare we got coming in set 5. So it creates alternative options. If not, you don't want to use the soul charge, it's a free energy charge 1. It is really nice because it does actually give the option of, if you're not seeing too much of your energy blast cards, you can energy blast 7, draw 1 if you've gone second on turn 2. which does create some really nice combos. But that's it for the grade 1s. Let's move to our triggers. And triggers are very, very simple. We have gone for our obvious crits. We have got 4, 5, 6, 7. All got different names because Krysrain's checking for different named units. It's just easier to have all the crits be different names for the just in case I'm forced to call 2 crit triggers, for example. I've gone for 1 effect crit for the just in case of the we need the extra soul option. Plus the 2, given the 2k to the booster behind Krysrain does help us hit for magic numbers. As for our alternative trigger, I have gone for 4 copies of the draws because we are still very much combo piece reliant, so extra draw does help dig for certain pieces. Next up we have got heal triggers. I've gone for myself being 2 normal heals, and then I've gone for 1 of each counter heal. This is personal preference. You can literally run 4 vanilla heals, 2 of one of the specific heals, 1 of each like I have. This is down to your personal preference. As for the over trigger, I have gone for the Spiritual King of Night Sky Nyx-Azalea. So Nyx-Azalea's got the additional effect of choosing a card from your damage zone, put it into your hand. You then choose up to 1 unit card from your hand, call it a rearguard circle, and it gets 10k until your end of turn. So why is this good, I hear people ask? Well, due to how Rochelle plays, our attack pattern now is rearguard, rearguard, vanguard, rearguard. So we're clearing our other empty front, one of our front row rearguards naturally with Francette. So having an open circle that we can then call an extra attack or 2 to extend to 5 attacks does make things really, really interesting. This outside of that isn't amazing. So like on a divine skill turn, obviously you're adding the card from damage back to hand, but that's all you're doing. Other options you can go for is Dose for Low works really nicely in this deck because you're giving an extra crit to the Vanguard and picking something back up from drop zone to hand. The Lyrical Overtrigger does work nicely outside of the divine skill turn, because outside of that you're giving 10k to all your rear guards, but the moment you divine skill, your increase or decrease is counting after the overtrigger's already been applied to the unit, so you're not gaining the extra 10k from that. The light overtrigger is not too bad for this deck, because extra draw power is always nice, and lyrical doesn't get removal, so it's an alternative option. The only real bad one is Valnort for this deck. Now, I was originally thinking of going for Valnort, but then I realised, oh wait, Francette after the second attack doesn't have enough to bounce any more cards. Because you're then left with the Vanguard and 2 rear guards, so all you'd be gaining is an additional 5k. Which at that point just is not worth it. So, for me, Nyx-Azalea was my preferred option, but I've given you all the options there you can go for instead. The reason I have gone also for draws over fronts, outside of just being the Peace Reliance, is front triggers just aren't that reliable in this deck when you're swinging rearguard, rearguard, vanguard, rearguard. Only 1 rearguard is gaining the 10k. I'd rather have the extra piece in hand, extra card in hand, over a wasted power gain. Especially if you're divine skilling that turn and you hit a front. The Vanguard, you've already swung both your rearguards. So the Vanguard gains 10k to pass on to the next one, which is the exact same as checking a draw, except you've gained an extra card out of the draw trigger. So fronts just really are not worth it in Krysrain. But that is it for Krysrain as deck profile. Let me just get the girl back so we can discuss a little bit more about the deck before we wrap up. So, all in all, Rochelle was a very solid buff to the deck. Being able to now enable 4 attacks, I do wish it hadn't been a restander. I wish it actually done more lyrical-esque thing instead of just being, oh look, restand. Like, we could have had a bounce and call, which is very much Bermuda. I wouldn't have said no to actually being like crit pressure on the rear guard or if your Vanguard did the skill, give the same powers to one of the cards chosen by Krysrain's ability. Just something else. But we get what we're given, and honestly, Rochelle is really fun. The deck does suffer to not being a good early game hand-wise. Because yes, you're popping a board down, bouncing it back to hand on your turn 2. But you don't want to lose those pieces because they're your pieces for the rest of the game. So you are reliant on what triggers you've actually drawn to guard with. And seeing that we don't actually start drawing a hand till turn 3, we are very much reliant on seeing our cyclers to actually try and draw into triggers. This is having come from testing into Zorga, which swings with Roaring Prison Dragons from turn 1. The deck just... Zorga into Krysrain is just free game for Zorga pretty much, unfortunately. But we do get better with set 5, as I said, because the double rare, being able to search out all of our grade 1s gives us more flexibility of what we're actually running as our grade 1s and can go for more different tech options. But that's going to be it for this video. If you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe. It very much does help the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye!